to be live on Facebook. Let me chill the volume over there as that comes on. There we go. All right, guys. Well, welcome to the call. So good to have you with us. Let me just check that I have got this all happening the right way. I thought, what the heck, that's live stream it into the group. So if you're joining us on Facebook, glad to have you with us. Obviously, we've got a stack on the inside here. Our Freedom Investor team having our usual Tuesday night training. And for those of us in Auckland, we had a blast last night. We got together and had what I decided to call, what did I call it? Finance fireworks in the light of a Guy Fawkes weekend. There we go. But yeah, just a super fun time of us getting together and having some cool training with my dad. So dad dropped a really epic training on us on what really has helped him in this space. Just an extra layer of things he's doing. He talked about pivot points and obviously high connection candles, which he loves. Some big round number stuff, some fib stuff. And if you haven't heard that before and you're watching on Facebook, then don't worry. You can see the recording somewhere on the page. But guys, tiny bit of housekeeping before we get going. We have got another epic opportunity for you to tune in and listen to a professional this week, Thursday, New Zealand time. So, excuse me, let me screen share for 1 second and show you what I'm talking about. I just posted it into the group. So this Thursday, where did it go? There it is. So we have got Jay Bonham and Mr. Greg Reno who are hosting this call Thursday, November 9th, 3 p.m. New Zealand time, inside the Facebook event that I created that you can see. You can find all the different times and different time zones. I know it's going to be Wednesday in some of the American and Canadian time zones and other times around there. But anyways, guys, Jay is the creator of the Sniper Vision strategy that we all run with. And so a huge opportunity for you to dial in, listen to the professional himself, show you what that scanner looks like that he's created, show you how it works, why it works, and how you can get access to it. And so that is what we're all doing. We're all plugged into Jay in the mornings or at night or the recordings later, whenever we can, listening to him. He is the guy that has done this. He has created this. He's an educator on our platform, one of 170 of them, but he just hit number 2 out of 170, which is massive. And I believe he's going to be number 1. And so, you know, he's just bringing value every single day of the week, sometimes 3 times a day, guys. I mean, just picture that for a second. You're able to, I mean, what would you do if you were in high school or coming out of high school and you got told that you could log in every day and listen to someone who's made a very, very decent amount of money, we'll put it that way, and is actually going to break down the markets live for you so that you can figure out how to enter and how to exit. He's never going to tell you when exactly to do that because that would be a crazy amount of financial advice, which then you would never learn how to fish. And if something happened to Jay, you would be crying. We all would. But besides that, the goal here is for you to become educated, for you to be empowered so that you can learn to become a self-directed investor. And so tonight, we had a blast last night in Auckland. Massive shout out to Dad again for bringing value. And then again in our team chat today, reiterating some of that. But tonight we have got our local legend, Mr. Michael Jacobsen, who is based down in Taupo. And if you don't know who this man is, guys, if this is the first time you're hearing him, you are in for an absolute treat. You know, he's been in the markets, he's been a trader and an educator in the space for, you know, well over 20 years. And, you know, he's gone about it the right way, the wrong way, the hard way, the up way, the down way. And he's arrived at a place now where obviously he knows exactly what he's doing. You know, I believe he posted in the Facebook page today how he managed to fire off his trade and close it in a minute and go back to bed. So if that doesn't, you know, sound like awesomeness, I don't know what does, but it's a pleasure to always have him with us. And so I want to get myself out the way quick tonight and let him bring just everything that he does. You know, every time he's with us, you know, he's got value, and I know he's got some mindset and some skill set gold for us this evening. So Mike, I'm going to find you over there, add you to the front. There we go, front and center. Bro, so good to have you with us tonight. Thank you so much for giving us your time as always. Absolutely love and appreciate you heaps, bro. And looking forward to the next time we get to rock an event in person. And but for now, I just want to say it's over to you, man. Thanks so much for your time tonight. Let's go, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. And great to have everyone again online. I'm just going to share my screen. And tonight I'm going to talk about something that is probably the biggest part of trading. Now, you've probably heard before, if you've been in the trading world, that trading is it's 80% psychology and 20% skill set. So once you have the skill set, that's actually the easy part. The easy part is just knowing how to do it. The difficult part is actually executing that strategy. And so in order for that to take place well, you need to change this and get this working correctly. And it's amazing that there's the two biggest things in the markets that will actually affect our trading success is fear and greed. So obviously in a strong market, there's a lot of greed. People are hungry. And then in a market that's going down, typically people are afraid. But the major thing that destroys traders is actually their approach to fear. And once you learn to deal with that, everything starts turning around. So for those of you who are new on however we've been streamed tonight, this is what our charts look like. I have some moving averages in here. On TradingView, this is a free platform, and I'm just looking for price to move up from here. Have a long position over here already, and that's because we have come into this support area from earlier in the day. And overall, we're in a very, very strong uptrend. So looking like we have a very, very shallow pullback in this zone here. Notice we also are at the 34,000 level. That's one of the big numbers that Tim talked about last night. 1,000 level, so 34,000. So we are bouncing from this level. We're also bouncing from this area here, which is where price was rejected from earlier today. So I'm long already looking for a move up. Notice that I have a trend line in, and this is just to let you know what I'm looking at while we do this session tonight. There's our trend line coming down from the high of the day, and price has been trapped under that for the last, how many hours is that? 12 hours or so. And I'm expecting that we get a possible breakup from there. So I'm long already on that trade. But what I'd like to share with you is tonight, learning to trade without fear. And this is something that sometimes does take a while to learn. I want to share a bit of my story tonight. I'm going to share some theory that will, I think, be incredibly helpful for a lot of traders here. So the most important, well, the most powerful fear that we have is the fear of loss. And I'm going to share a couple of thoughts tonight. Up here, it's not that one, it's this one. And there's 4 different fears that we have as traders. And when we approach the market, the thing that causes us to make mistakes, the thing that causes us to have emotional, irrational behavior is unrealistic expectations, which cause us to define or interpret and therefore perceive market information as threatening. So what is fear? Fear is when you see some sort of threat around you and you perceive some sort of harm to your person. And so in the markets, and we're going to tease this out tonight, and I think we'll have another session within the next month to actually go further on this. But there's 4 major fears in the market. The first one is being wrong. The second one is the fear of losing. The third one is the fear of missing out. The fourth one is the fear of leaving money on the table. These are the 4 types of fear that we have. And now each one of these is actually linked to a root cause in our personality. Like I said before, trading is 80% psychological. And as each of us have grown up, we all have a totally different frame of reference. And that frame of reference and those experiences have caused us to have certain memories. And our brain is incredible because our brain is created in such an amazing way that it remembers absolutely everything. It remembers everything you hear, smell, touch, taste, read. Now, we can't always recall those things, but our brain it can remember everything. So, for example, I think it was last week, I was in town and I had just a fleeting smell, like a fleeting, there was a fleeting smell in my nose that came down the street, and immediately it took me back to when I was 5 years old in school, and a whole lot of memories just flooded through my mind because my body recalled that smell and it connected that smell with that experience in the past. And so when we trade, when we encounter the fear of loss, that often triggers a lot of emotional memories. A lot of us have traumatic stuff in the past, whether it's big or small. So, for example, my son has a fear of dogs that he's getting over because when he was 4 years old, a dog attacked him and bit him and drew blood. And he still is learning how to cope with this fear of dogs. It was a traumatic experience. And each of us have some sort of experience, whether it's a big traumatic experience or a small one, that causes us to feel the threat of harm. And our brain remembers all of those traumatic experiences. And it never forgets them because they're moments of threat. So what I've just written a few notes here. If we come close to experiencing threat again in the future, our limbic system is activated to react to that. So that part of your brain that is emotional, it responds with a survival mentality that reminds you, you need to do something. This is danger. So our memories are triggered when that happens. So let's look at this next slide here. So learning to trade without fear, hesitation, or internal conflict is a function of believing that you don't have to know what is going to happen next on a trade-by-trade basis to win or make consistent money. So in order to trade without fear, we have to not be afraid of the future, and we don't have to know what's going to happen next. But before I go into that, I want to go back the slide, and I want to ask this question. Who here has the fear of being wrong when they trade? Just type BW in the chat. Who here feels they have the fear of losing? Type L. If you have the fear of missing out, type MO. If you have the fear of leaving money on the table, write LM. I just want to know where people are at. What are you afraid of in the market? What fear do you have? All of the above? Okay, missing outs. Yep, okay. Missing outs. Losing. Yep, okay. A lot of BW, a lot of MO. Yeah, yeah. A lot of being wrong, a lot of missing out. So what's incredible, we're going to go into this in a future session because there are deep psychological roots that are the cause for that. So for example, one is being wrong is often a status cause, because being wrong means you're not a part of the in crowd. You're not fully accepted by other people based on your performance. And trading is all about performance. It is the high performance sport or a high performance game. Now, in performance, when you perform as an athlete, there is always the potential fear of getting it wrong. So for example, if you're a golfer and you have a 1 meter putt to make $1 million, which is often the case, you have the fear of not making the putt and the fear of missing the money. You have the fear of judgment of everyone else thinking, there we go, he's not quite number one, or there we go, he's not as good as he used to be. There's the fear of judgment. So performance often results in a fear of judgment. And for me, when I started trading years ago and I was loaned a lot of money to begin trading with, I lost that money. I lost all of that money. That resulted in an incredibly traumatic experience in my mind and in here, deep inside. And if I ever lost again, I would always be triggered, because I remembered the look on that person's face when I told them I'd lost that money, and the judgment that I felt in that moment, and the look of distrust of that person traumatized me inside. And so making losses after that, it triggered me incredibly, in an incredibly deep way emotionally, because my performance of the future was still linked back to my experiences in the past. So each of us have fears in trading, and once we get past those fears, that's when everything actually begins to change. Let me just see if I can get my screen back again. Here it is. Okay. So learning to trade without fear or hesitation, because one of the reasons we miss out on trading is either you enter late, which means you hesitate, or you have an internal conflict. What does that internal conflict say? It says, you're probably wrong. Your last trade was a loser. This one's probably going to be a loser too. And especially if you've had 3 or 4 trades in a row, your mind is telling you, man, the next trade's probably going to lose too. There's this deep internal conflict based on what's happened in the past. But if you actually don't know, you don't have to know what's going to happen next to win or make consistent money. And the reason for that is pretty cool, but we're going to look at that in the next slide. But what does fear do? What's the power of fear? Fear causes us to focus on the object of our fear so that we end up actually creating the very experience we're trying to avoid. And that's why it's so important to remove fear from our trading, because otherwise we end up in the cycle of actually trying to create, or of actually subconsciously creating that very thing that we hate. And that's why it's so important to mitigate fear in our trading. But this is how the mind works. Our minds are automatically wired to associate and make connections. So for example, that smell I had last week triggered off all these memories, connections. So this is the powerful thing about our emotions. If I lose on a trade that I expected to win, and I admit that I was wrong, it isn't just admitting I'm wrong on that one trade. Because of how our minds are wired, that one experience has the potential to tap us into the accumulated negative energy or pain of every time I've been wrong in my life, or every time I've lost something or missed out on something. So I enter a trade, I think I'm going to be right, I'm excited, I lose. I have to say, yes, I was wrong. Now, why, and I'm sure all of us have experienced this, when you lose on a trade, okay, I'm going to ask for a yes, type a Y in the chat if you have had a losing trade and you have been emotionally triggered by it. Type a Y in the chat if you've been emotionally triggered. Yes, everyone has been emotionally triggered by it. Okay, now, why is it? Why? Okay, let's go a bit further. Has anyone had the experience of being so triggered it's affected you for an entire day? Type a 1 in the chat if you've been triggered for an entire day based on the outcome of a trade. Okay, everyone's saying it. Well, almost everyone. 11100. Okay, so some people are more more grounded than others. Some people might affect it more, but all of us feel emotionally triggered. Why is it that one trade, one loss can affect us so badly? It's because that one loss, it opens up a door to remember every single loss we have ever experienced in our lives. That's what brain psychologists tell us. The other thing is that, let's say that you so not only loss, but let's say you've missed out on something. Let's say you've missed out on the trade. I'm sure all of us have missed out on a trade. We've woken up in the morning, it's gone 200 pips in our favor, stopped us out. We've gone, man, I missed out, and we've been triggered. That moment actually opens a door to recall, for our brain to remember and recall every time in our past of missing out on something. Every time you've missed out on an ice block as a kid, every time you've missed out on, that raise or promotion from your boss, every time you've missed out on love, acceptance. That's how amazing, incredible the brain is. So that is why it's so important to actually overcome fear in our trading. And obviously the main reason why most traders are not successful is the emotional triggers that come through loss. That's the biggest problem why traders actually don't succeed. So our minds are automatically wired to associate or make these connections. And these are the things that stop us from moving forward. So let's go to the next slide, which should be here. The big mental shift in performance under pressure comes when we can feel fear, but accept deep inside that we will mentally survive that moment. Once that mental threat in a situation is contained, it loses its power to overwhelm us emotionally and shut us down, allowing us to re-energize and face the challenge. Now, where am I getting this from? So I have a book that's been incredibly helpful for me. It's actually the sports psychologist of the All Blacks. After the All Blacks were, they were choking back in the World Cups They didn't choke this year, but when they choked a few years back, they actually got a sports psychologist to come in and help them, because in the last moments, they couldn't handle the pressure. And this is one of the top sports psychologists in the world. The book is Perform Under Pressure. Oh, there's my virtual background. Perform Under Pressure by a New Zealand sportsman psychologist. And he talks about how the brain works. And he talks about the threat of fear in our lives when we are seeking performance, either in a sports situation, athletic situation, business situation, or personal relationship situation, and how the brain responds. And typically it responds with, there is a threat, we need to survive. That's the initial response. But if that is not balanced by, okay, let's calm down, what do we do next? Then it takes over and you get emotional exuberance, which leads to irrational behavior. So what the book teaches you is how to balance the left and right side of your brain to be contained, even though the threat is there. So what he's saying in this quote is that everything starts to shift when we can experience fear in the moment, but we understand the truth of the situation. So, for example, if you feel fear in the market can't hurt you. It can't jump out and kill you. You're not going to die. You're not going to have a heart attack. You know, it's not going to hurt you. But there are other fears that are emotional that we have. But I'm going to come back to one of the previous slides that I mentioned, and it's this one here. How do we learn to trade without fear? The fear is that something is going to happen to us in the future. But if we're not afraid about the outcome of our trade, whether it's a win or loss, we don't have to feel any fear. Now, a lot of people feel the fear before the trade because, like, man, I don't know what's going to happen. Is it going to win? Is it going to lose? And they might exit their trade early, which is what I used to do. Or they, once the trade goes against them, they're like, oh, it must be wrong. It must be wrong. And they cut it out for a loss, and then it goes up anyway, or goes down anyway. So there's often trade before there's fear before the trade eventuates. So I remember talking to Jay some months back, and I said, Jay, in your experience, how have you learned to get over the lack of discipline and lack of self-control when it comes to trading? He said, the number one thing for me is following the maths. And I said, okay, I think I know what you mean by that. And he said, yeah, it's basically realizing that if I follow the rules, this trade has an 80% probability of being right. So the next trade I take might be a loser. The next one might be a loser. The next one might be a loser. But I know if I follow the rules, 8 out of 10 trades are going to be successful. So what that does is, if I can base my trades on those rules, which are facts, it removes the fear of what's going to happen next. So here we go. Believing that you don't have to, learning to trade without fear, hesitation, or internal conflict is a function of believing that you don't have to know what's going to happen next on a trade-by-trade basis. Because out of a sample size of trades, if you follow the rules to the letter, you will win about 8 out of 10 trades. If you know that, then you don't have to be afraid of what's going to happen, because you know some are going to be losers and some are going to be winners. Hope that makes sense. Is that making sense? Put a Y in the chat if that makes sense. Okay, great. All right, so the first key to overcoming fear in trading is learning to think in probabilities. And so you learn, basically, you ground your actions in the probability that this is a proven strategy, that if you backtest it, it has an extremely high win rate of 8 out of 10 or 80%. Having something as simple like that totally transforms your mental, emotional response to losses. Because you know, hey, I can have 5 losses in a row, but if I follow the rules, over time, I will win 80% of my trades. And you can expect that you'll have losing trades. But if you focus on a trade one at a time, and you think, oh man, I lost today. Oh man, I lost. I can't believe I lost. That's only one out of a big sample size. You are going to have losing trades if you trade this strategy with type of vision. So the first key to overcoming fears is learning to think in probabilities. And that's why so often Jay will put in the Fit Life, and he'll have different posts saying, if you backtest it, the win rate is 80% for this, 83% for this. If you use this stop loss and this take profit and these rules, this is the win rate. What he's trying to teach you is to think based in probabilities. And it's the same for people who go to casinos. Why do people, sit at a poker machine and just put their money in? Because they know after so many times, they're going to win a couple. And then some of those might be big winners. So when people put money into those machines, they lose most of the time. But do they walk away in tears? No, because they know there's going to come a time where at least they're going to win something. Now, when you go to a casino, the casino thinks in terms of probabilities. The house never loses. The casinos never, ever, ever, ever lose money. Why? Because they know that over time, they will win far more than they lose because they've done all the numbers. And so Jay, he's done the numbers for the strategy. He's done all the back testing. He knows, man, 80% of the time, you're going to make money. Don't worry about the losers. And so that takes all the stress out of, I've lost this one trade in front of me today. It's okay. I had a couple of losses last week. It's all right, happens. But I know over time, the strategy is successful. So what we're going to do, I hope that's helpful. That book I recommend is Perform Under Pressure. It's an incredible book by Dr. Kerry Evans on the brain and your response under pressure in every area of life. It teaches you exactly how to think and to calm your brain in emotional situations so that the red part of your brain, the limbic system, the freeze, flight, fight part of your brain doesn't overwhelm you in the face of potential loss. So it's an incredible book. And maybe next time or another time, we're going to look at the deeper root causes of those fears. The first one I mentioned is fear of missing out fear of being wrong, was it? And that is the status problem that a lot of people have. If I have more wins, then I can actually say I'm a real trader, which means I have more credibility or kudos in the eyes of other people. There are deep underlying psychological issues that cause us to fear these things. And once we can look into them, recognize them, call them for what they are, then we can face them and say, all right, I'm not going to let these things control me, because fear is the only thing that will stop me from being successful as a trader. So I'm just going to go briefly back. I'm going to look at a couple of these things one more time. Unrealistic expectations cause us to define, interpret, and therefore perceive market information as threatening. If we buy and the market starts going down, we feel threatened. We feel fear. Being wrong, losing, missing out, leaving money on the table. So we have unrealistic expectations. Why? Because we don't know the maths. We don't know the probabilities. We don't know what's going to happen next. Learning to trade without fear is a function of believing that you don't have to know what's going to happen next on a trade by trade basis, means one trade at a time. You don't have to know. You just have to know that over a large sample size, you will be successful. Fear causes more fear, and it causes to create more fear. Okay? We don't want fear at all. And our minds connect everything we see, touch, and smell to past experiences, especially traumatic ones. So remember, we actually tap into our entire memory of all loss, failure, or missed opportunities when we're wrong. And that's something that we need to get under control. Otherwise, it'll hamper us for the rest of our trading career. The mental shift comes when we can feel fear, but accept in that moment, deep inside, that we will survive. We're not going to die. It's going to be okay. Let's look at the truth behind the situation. Let's bring the blue side of our brain in to understand what's happening. And that actually will calm down that red side of our brain. We can then re-energize and face the challenge and approach it with a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset, which we're going to look at next time. And again, the first key and the next key we'll look at next time. The first key is learning to think in probabilities. Okay, so I'm going to close that down. All right, what's happening in the markets right now? It's 8:30. We have a break above the trend line, and we've come back down and just had a cross there. We're just retesting it at the moment. Let's go out to a 15-minute chart and see what's happening there. All right, so as you can see, I have a couple of levels marked. One of them is the 1,000 levels, as Tim does, and then the other is the major support levels. So as you can see, this was the major support from Friday. Extremely important price. That's where price exploded from. I have that one marked. I have this one marked. And at the moment, I'm just coming down into my entry. So I had 20 pips on the board, or 19 pips. So if this comes down, I might scratch this and look for a further break higher. But I think we might get a bounce from here. 5-minute chart, again, contained below that trend line. Look at that. The trend line has contained price again. And we have the open in London in 30 minutes. So often what happens in the open is price will explode in one direction, which will be a stop hunt. That happened this morning, which is where I got that trade that Ty was talking about. So we actually had 2 stop hunts this morning. The second one was the money trade, where price stop hunted the high from last week. Here's the high from last week. And as you can see, right on the open, spiked into that area and rejected it. Boom, straight down for 100 pips. And then we've basically been going sideways for the rest of the day. So at the moment, the higher time frame trend is obviously, the 50-minute chart is not up, but the 60-minute chart is a very, very strong chart. Look at that, very, very strong trend. So definitely we would be maybe looking for a move up. Now, what's amazing is that last week we closed the week very bearish, and we went straight up, had a massive run up in price this week. We went up for over, 1,800 pips. So what happened there? Well, what happened is down here somewhere, the Federal Reserve came out and they said, we are not going to raise interest rates anymore. And that one thing was enough for billions and billions of dollars to exit the market from short positions and be turned into long positions. Because when interest rates go up, the stock market historically goes down. And if the interest rates are put on pause, then the market goes up. So that's exactly what happened. And that's why all the investors flooded back into the market, because the treasury bonds started collapsing. So interest rates were paused, treasury bonds started collapsing, and then that's why the market went up. So that's why that happened. But overall, strong trend. Can't see it really stopping for now. One thing that is super interesting is that we do have a very, very clear trend line coming down from the former highs, which I will definitely be watching this week. Here's the trend line. It is actually a 4-month trend line from August through to September, and it's just above where we are now. So if we come up to that trend line, I'd like to see what happens there. But this is a strong trend. I don't want to fight it for now, and I'll definitely be looking for long trades to go into this week, but obviously take short trades in every direction, because as traders we can take short and long trades, which is great. So market opens in 25 minutes. Ty, I'm going to hand it back to you, but before I do, I'm just going to check the chat, because I always forget to do that. And I'm going to answer the questions. Okay. Yeah, so good questions, F. So higher time frame is 60-minute chart is a very, very strong uptrend. And this sort of trend, very, very steep trend, often you will get shallow corrections. So what I mean by that is, this is a very shallow correction here. You know, price exploded for over 1,000 pips, very, very small correction before the continuation. The only reason we've stopped here is because of this previous resistance back in October. That's the only reason we paused there. We took out all the stops and we reversed back down. So basically we need to hold these moving averages in order to push higher. You know, absolutely we could come down and test this area here. And that's because this is where price was contained after its first pullback. So that could absolutely happen. The reason why I took the trade over here is because, again, not only did we have the 34,000 level, let me just zoom in. Not only did we have the 34,000 level, but we had the demand zone over here. And we also have, what else did we have? I think we had a pivot as well. So I'm coming down to break even. I'm going to get out of this trade now. So scratch out for 0. And I'm going to wait for a touch of this support level. So this yellow line, it's possible that when the market opens, we come down, and I'd like to see a reaction at that level or a reaction at the level below if I'm going to trade to the long side. So I'd need to see price hitting that and turning around. But it's best not to trade too close to the open unless you get a very, very strong signal. I will normally trade a divergence close to the open. And for those of you who look at that, that was my trade this morning. So right before again, this is not sniper vision trading. This is just being aware of support and resistance. So this is 1 minute before the open. And we hit all the stops. We produce a nice candle. And we get this big red bar, a big green bar, boom. So often I'll trade a divergence before the open. But if you're trading sniper vision, you need to see a reversal and a new trend begin to develop. And for that to happen, we would need to see this trend line broken, moving averages to turn around. If that happens, I'll probably get in again. But again, we have 20 minutes to the open. And at the moment, price is still respecting that 1,000 level and the demand zone. And we potentially could have some more divergence there. So if we don't have any more questions, I'll give it back to Ty and see what he has for us next. So do we have any more questions on anything I've shared tonight? Maybe anything technical? For those who are new, we're basically looking to follow the trend once a strong trend is developed, and we're looking to trade the momentum of that trend. At the moment, we're ranging, and we need to see a break above the averages again. We'd love to see a break above this dynamic trend line to confirm that this downtrend has now finished and price is moving back higher. But the uptrend at the moment is technically very much in place. However, that's not to say that the market could just sell off, because we had a bank collapse on the weekend in I think it was Utah or somewhere, a bank collapse that could provide more fear in the markets. Anything could happen. And that's why we can't say, all right, there's an uptrend, I'm only going to take buy trades. If the market starts telling us it's going down, then we need to sell. So we have to, again, let the market prompt us and follow the market, not try and read our own opinion to the market. All right, no more questions. So I will give it back to you, Ty. And guys, I hope that's helped tonight. Learning to conquer fear, learning to trade with confidence, how we begin to do that. Focus on the maths behind your strategy. Those are facts. Those are unshakable facts. And then hopefully next time, or maybe in a couple of weeks, we'll look at some more psychological issues that tend to hold us back, which will often be from traumatic experiences in our past or deep held convictions and misconceptions about life or our own personality or identity that we need to sort out in order to actually trade with confidence. So hopefully we can look at those next time. All right. Thanks, guys. Ty, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Guys, drop some love and appreciation in the chat here on Zoom and on Facebook as well. Absolute gold, man. Like, stacks of notes. I'm excited because I get to rewatch all of this when I edit it and put it on YouTube. And this is one to go over slowly, guys. Like, have a good, solid think about, those different kinds of fear that Mike was referencing. I think this just goes so well on the back of the mindset bootcamp that Jay did the week before last. Just really take the time to reflect on what Mike shared tonight. And yeah, take some time, guys. Like I said, this book I keep talking about it. Get yourself one. Get a book where you can go and journal and write down what is going on in your life, what you're aiming for, what your goals are, what that vision is. And just like you said, if you've got that stuff in there that's getting triggered, it's going to get triggered. And that's why, we keep talking about books like Change Your Paradigm, Change Your Life by Bob Proctor, where he's talking about you getting very clear at a subconscious level who you are. And it's one of those things where trading is like a mirror and you get instant feedback on who you are. And I love it how Dad said it. He thought he was slightly more patient and disciplined before he started trading, and guess what, when you start trading, instant feedback. And that's a great thing, guys. It actually means you have feedback now. You can see something that needs some adjusting. And essentially, that is the wonderful thing here. Those 4 words we see when we log in is, what will you become, or who are you becoming in this journey? And hopefully a more confident, a more self-controlled, a more disciplined, a more patient, a more loving, a more generous individual. And with that, it has to start internally before it happens externally. So guys, once again, Mike, thank you so much as always. Absolute gold. So we had our event in Auckland last night. Like I said, we've got Jay this Thursday, New Zealand time, 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Special Zoom that he's doing with Greg. You got to pre-register for that to get on it. Then, guys, on Saturday, a private little presentation happening in East Auckland. For those of you in the know, if you have any guests in East Auckland, I don't know if there's space yet. If there is, let us know. If you're keen to be a part of any of that, let me know. And if there's space, we'll get you in. Otherwise, I'm heading to Tauranga next weekend. Can't wait to be with some of the squad down there. And so around the Thursday, Friday, 16, 17. So if you're in the Tauranga area and you're open to hosting something, let me know. I've already got 2 home events locked in with 2 very special families that want to launch this thing and help their communities. So if you want to hear more about this, guys, get in touch with them. We invited you here tonight. We can show you how to get plugged in so you can join us beyond Go Live. With Jay in the mornings. And otherwise, guys, we'll leave you at that. Well, I'll chuck on a track and say thanks again for joining us this evening. We'll see you on Go Live in the morning and on chat tomorrow, and Go Live tomorrow and in the chat. So with that, guys, enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll catch you later. Have a good one. Good night.